Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Founders Day 2024. I'm Colby Reed, and I'm so glad that you have chosen to join us today for this session on the scientific research sector. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Founders Day is a beloved tradition at the Murdoch Trust that allows us an opportunity to reflect on our opening back in June of 1975. It allows us to celebrate and uplift the many organizations that serve the common good of the Pacific Northwest, and it gives us an opportunity to reflect on the life and legacy of our benefactor, Jack Murdoch, and how that legacy continues to influence and impact our work today and our planning into the future. Today, we are joined for our scientific research sector conversation by Dr. Moses Lee, Vice President of Scientific Research, Grants, and Programming at the Murdoch Trust. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Lee.
Thank you, Colby. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Dr. Lee, I'd really like if we could start at that 30,000-foot view as we think about scientific research and look at why the Trust chooses to invest time and resources in this sector and in these programs. Can you share a bit about why scientific research is a priority for the Murdoch Trust?
Question, Colby. The answer is this, is actually you do not need to look further from our benefactor, Jack Murdoch himself. I'll share three thoughts with you all. First, Jack's work on the oscilloscope and at Tektronix totally revolutionized modern technology. Second, he recognized that scientific research, scientific innovation could improve lives. And this quote from him says it best. The greatest opportunity of all is in the field of figuring out how we humans live a little better, more constructively. Third, Jack valued the power of brilliant minds, dedicated to the common good. He recognized that providing them, particularly young, brilliant minds, with resources could lead to life-improving research and innovations. We see this play out every day in research facilities, at universities, in educational programs all around the region we serve. And we want to help fund and fuel this innovative spirit because we want to see new solutions and how the solutions can help us all live a bit more constructively.
One of the core themes today has been the spirit of education and how education really is a cross-cutting foundational element of the work of the Murdoch Trust. Romanita Hairston spoke about that in her comments to open our day. We heard about that from Lauren Schmidt-Dunlop in the ACE sector, Arts, Culture, and Education. Dr. Thornberry just was speaking about that in terms of nonprofit leadership and development. STEM subjects seem to be kind of all the rage today when it comes to our schools, particularly in K through 12 education. I'm curious why it's so important for these outside partners like the Murdoch Trust to play a role in funding this STEM work.
That's another great question, Colby. Thank you for asking that. I like to start by quoting the late President Nelson Mandela. He said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." Isn't that so true? Very, very true. Now, in the Pacific Northwest, we are a home for some of the most talented colleges, universities, scientists with great potential to affect positive global change. Yet, there is a deficit of private and federal funding to support specific areas, critical types of areas that's so necessary for the advancement of scientific knowledge. And that include things like supporting research instrumentation, capital investments, nurturing future scientists, and also very importantly, supporting and promoting multi-institutional collaborations. There is no doubt that technology advancements transforms human flourishing, enhances human flourishing. And our sector's work contributes to that. And our sector focuses on the support of these institutions and scientists in their pursuit of cutting-edge research in the areas of natural sciences, engineering, and medicine. And finally, just wanted to make a note that the objectives of our sector's grants programs and conferences are the following: to discover new and transformative knowledge, to open new research fields, creating innovative technologies, thereby opening opportunities for economic advancements and transformation of lives, to building a scientific community and training future scientists. Above all, it's all towards the goal of promoting and supporting human flourishing.
Wonderful. Now, Dr. Lee, please forgive me. I was so excited to start our session. I forgot two very important housekeeping elements that I want to make sure I mention. One being that at the end of today's session, we are going to have an opportunity for some audience questions. So if you have a question about the scientific research sector that you'd like Dr. Lee to answer, please feel free to drop that into the Q&A box. We will get to as many of those as we can. The other note is that this session is being recorded, and you will receive a recording if you registered for this event. It'll also be on our website. We welcome you to share that with as many people as you like if you think that they would find value in hearing today's conversation. That being said, I'd love to get back to your comments that you just made about investing in education, and you talk about this next generation of scientists and how the Murdoch Trust, we invest in physical space, we invest in tools, but we also focus on building capacity in the individuals, the men, the women who will drive that research for decades to come. Can you talk a little bit more about the work that the Trust is doing to invest in future scientists?
Absolutely. Indeed, even as we make research grants and invest heavily, deeply into today's scientific innovation, we know that the future also lies in our future scientists. As a result, we also invest time and resource in helping grow the foundation from which new scientists, new students interested in science can learn and develop. And I will share two examples on how we do this. First, for decades, we have supported the Partners in Science program. This program leverages grants and conferences to help transform how educators teach science in secondary schools. And in this program, teachers, the partners are given the opportunity to do publishable scientific research with mentors at universities, colleges, and biomedical research institutes. Now, these researchers gets to present their findings at a Partners in Science conference. Some even gets to publish their work in scholarly scientific journals. And they participate in workshops on how to translate the research experience back into their classroom. And the idea is this. The idea is that this experience that gets translated back into the classroom would ignite curiosity and interest amongst middle school and high school students to become interested in science and prime the pipeline of future scientists. Very important to do.
And so you mentioned you had two examples. There's
Yes.
the Partners in Science Conference, and there's also MCSR, correct?
Yes. Thank you for asking about that. Now, the second program that we've done for decades is called the Murdoch College Science Research, MCSR program. This program also leverages grants and conferences to help transform science education at predominantly undergraduate colleges and universities. Now in this program, we're focusing on college level students and education. The flagship annual MCSR conference is organized to support and celebrate undergraduate research. Now, besides building the scientific community, the conference fosters collaboration. And it produces transformative experiences for the students. Create new ideas, have conversations, and form partnerships in advancing scientific research and education. Above all, it gives the students a taste of what being a scientist is all about, what it is like. And it also contributes to our sector's goal of training future scientists. Now, you might ask a question, why are we focusing on these predominantly undergraduate institutions? The answer is actually pretty clear. One is statistic. On a per capita basis, These institutions graduate the largest number of STEM majors. And the reason is this. The students at this institution, many have opportunities to do undergraduate research as part of their education. It is now clear that the undergraduate research experience is a major driving force that would keep students interested in science and to choose a career in science. It is now a well-established best practice in science education.
And having actually gone to the conference a few times and seen the students that are involved, there's a great pulling of students who maybe wouldn't normally be pursuing a career in the sciences, correct? It's opening a door and really showing that pathway to the sciences as well.
You're so absolutely correct. What this particular conference offers is an opportunity, particularly for the younger undergraduate students. You know, typically the students will go on to the professional conferences to present their work at a later stage. But this conference, the MCSR conference, high power, energizing, and engaging conference, provides these younger students especially the opportunity to get that taste. And that will hook them in. And like I said, undergraduate research data shows that is a great way to keep the students excited in science and choosing science as a career.
Excellent. And that investment in connection, it doesn't just stop at the educators and the students, right? The Trust also invests in opportunities for researchers across our region to connect and collaborate.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, Kobe. In addition to what I just mentioned, the Partners in Science and the MCSR conferences, we also make grants that foster specific collaborations. And I also like to share two examples if I could. First is our RAISE program that promotes collaboration across several predominantly undergraduate institutions. RAISE stands for, R-A-I-S-E, stands for Research Across Institutions for Scientific Empowerment. Each collaboration team must have 3 to 4 institutional members. This program does not only overcome the feeling of professional isolation typically experienced by professors at these smaller institutions, but what it will also do, it expands research capacity so that these researchers can tackle larger problems. There is a dearth of such programs nationwide, so we're really excited about this. The second example I'd like to share with you is an ongoing program, a grant that we have made for many years, more than 2 decades, by the way. It's a grant that we call the Murdoch Scholars Grant. Is made to the Oregon Health and Science University, OHSU. This grant supports a collaboration between the university and 8 private colleges in Oregon. In this program, science undergrads from the colleges are paired up with world-class OHSU researchers for 1 or 2 summers to do work on cutting-edge biomedical research. Now, here's the outcome. The overwhelming majority of students who graduated from this program have either gone on to graduate schools and getting PhDs, become scientists, or they have gone on to science-related professional schools, such as medical schools, and getting MDs. And many of these MD graduate students ultimately do clinical research. So this research experience is still very pivotal to their career and, of course, towards human flourishing. Again, what this does is underscores the power of the scientific research experience for keeping students excited about science and choosing science careers. In fact, this is true for all levels in science education. I'd like to say one more thing if I could, because I'm puzzled. I'm puzzled. Here's why I'm puzzled. How could Jack have known about this best practice back in the 1950s and 60s? Of course he couldn't. But he laid out the framework and foundation for us to do our work today. And what this points out, again, is that it is Jack's incredible wisdom and vision that were well before his time. And we are better because of him.
Absolutely. So well put. And we're honestly better for having you as part of our organization. One of the things that I love about speaking with you and working with you is your passion for this that comes from your own background. You're a science educator yourself. You're a scientific researcher. You're one of the smartest people I've ever met, quite frankly. I'm curious as we're leaning into this new sector strategy that we've been talking about as an organization, and we're looking at the best ways we can wrap our heads around these new areas of service. I'm curious as you're looking at the scientific research sector, what are some of the things that you're hoping to see? What are the things you're hoping to learn about as we're leaning into this new model?
Well, a couple of things I'd like to say. Excellent question, by the way. First of all, is in this new in this new sectoral model, it does allows us as a team to really determine and have the flexibility to think about how best can we achieve the goals of our sector. And in our case would be two, very quite simply, to support cutting edge scientific research, and two, training the next generation of scientists. Very important. How do we do that? And this new model gives us an opportunity to tackle that in a way that is, I think, very exciting. But let me say three things. First, just wanted to make sure our colleagues are aware that in this new model, our funding priorities have not changed. While we fund a lot in the scientific research area, scientific research projects, our sector also handles and processes strategic STEM and health-related capital and equipment proposals from the higher education sector. That's a very important thing to remember. And second, also, I want folks to also remember, too, as we move into the sector, before I talk about the kind of futuristic things, is that the things that we're doing in this new model is all designed to make us more effective in how we do and what we do to better serve our community. I know there's been a lot of changes, and we greatly appreciate the community's patience and support as we go through that process. But here, the third thing is probably the most important part, as I alluded to, is this new model allows us to better and be more effective in reaching our goals. And let me give you a couple of specific examples. One of the things that's really, really exciting, and this probably also translated from the COVID-19 era, I will get to that in just a minute, and that is we can be nimble and more proactive in responding to emerging, even unexpected areas of interest, areas of innovation, and maybe areas of gaps that exist that needed to be filled. I know some of my colleagues have talked about the last point in their comments. Take, for example, COVID-19. Our trustee, Jeff Pinion, mentioned this morning that we had to act quickly and differently at that time, given the situation. And we had no choice, and we did it. But now, in this new model, we actually have a mechanism to do more of this without the pressure of a pandemic. I think that's very exciting. Take, for example, with all of the scientific advancement going on, we can focus on a specific disease area. This is an area of interest and impact and a need, such as, for example, early diagnosis and treatment of cancer. In such a project, in such a work, you can imagine that we can zero in on specific cutting-edge innovations of genomics, for example, the latest innovations in imaging, a big word, spatialomics, and of course, AI. How does all that translate to human flourishing, impacting human flourishing? Very, very exciting. That's opportunities. Now, in another example, you might imagine, and we heard that discussed this morning too, a little bit, was about the environment, climate, our planet. We can do things that focuses specifically on climate change, finding scientific solutions to addressing some of those issues, and ultimately to save our planet. We live on one planet, and how do we save our planet? Very, very exciting. So you can imagine this just opens up the whole area for us. Outside of the laboratory field kind of research, Of course, we also focus on innovation in education. Because as I said earlier, our future also lies in our future scientists. So we need to also be focusing on the evolving work and thinking and what's happening in this whole concept of work and learning. For example, we can focus on finding innovative ways to strengthen STEM and health-related training and education at community colleges and trade schools, something we have not done too much. But that is a very important sector and it's a need. So how do we start thinking about it? Now, in this new sectoral model, it gives us that nimbleness and opportunity to explore such areas. And that's very exciting. Engage the community. As again, many of my colleagues have said, the way that we do things at the Trust is we don't just kind of sit down and think about this ourselves. We bring the community involved into our exploration phase of the work, thinking about how best to address a specific issue and think about programs that would be impactful to them and to us. So it's very exciting. So this is, to me, probably one of the best things that's happening with our new sectoral model.
It's very exciting stuff. We do want to let everyone know, we do have an opportunity. If you have any questions for Dr. Lee, you're welcome to drop those in the Q&A box. I do have to say, if the question is, does our organization qualify for a grant? We're not going to be able to answer that on this call. You need to check our website. They'll be able to help you there as well. Before we get to those questions, I do just have to ask, you used a term, was it spatiomics? What was that? That's a term I'm not familiar with.
Spatialomics.
Spatialomics.
Spatialomics. What that means is you are able to image and look at a specific space. And for example, looking at a specific tissue as a specific organ. Take as an example, you have a tumor. You know, you can say, well, I can do this, this, and that to treat that tumor. And let's just say one of the ways to treat that tumor would be to activate specific white blood cells, T lymphocytes, that would enter into the tumor and destroy the tumor. But when you look at spatialomics, what it will tell you is that, and you look at it as a whole, you know, not only at the tumor, but you look at where all the white blood cells are, the T lymphocytes are. If the T lymphocytes are nowhere near the tumor, that ain't going to do you any good. So you got to know not only the context of the biochemistry and the genetics, but also where things are located. Do they have a way of getting to the site of action? That's an open, because what some of these technologies are enabling scientists to see and do is to recognize that certain, I'm using cancer as an example, certain cancers are more lethal than others because of this unique spatial arrangement of cells, spatialomics. And that could help dictate how they treat, what they use to treat specific tumors. I think that's very exciting.
Fascinating, fascinating stuff. Speaking of you know, the potential that's out there in terms of the scientific space, one of the questions that's come in a couple different factors, a couple different forms has been, you know, if there's any particular area of scientific research that you're seeing specifically in the Pacific Northwest that is, you know, really kind of cutting edge or really interesting or was really emerging as kind of this is going to be a big deal in 5, 10, 15 years. It's jumping to mind.
Well, just going into AI as an example. Of course, there's a lot of research in AI as in a technology, and there's a lot of computational work involved in that. The Trust, we have been focusing not so much on the computational side of things, but what leads to the ability for computer scientists to do their work, which is the materials and the devices. And to get to be able to do the kind of computational work, you need to come up with those materials. So I think that the Pacific Northwest, you know, being just kind of a prime area for, you know, computational work, you know, computational programming, all the different big companies are here. Also, concomitant to that is we have an incredible infrastructure of researchers and institutes and institutions that are doing this very high level, cutting edge material science and device engineering work that will lead to that amalgamation of the computer work and the material work that could lead to ultimately transforming AI. For example, quantum computing. That would be a way. The other I want to mention very quickly is in the notion of global health. This is a global health hub in the world. And with all of these medical things that I've been talking about, examples, some of the cutting edge work is being done here, from global diseases, vaccine development, all of that. I think that bodes really well. I think when you look at it too, from the educational perspective, we also see the growth in STEM education, STEM enrollment, and many of these students are interested in the life sciences and also in the engineering and in the material space and the computational space. And that's how I see it happening.
Interesting. We've got just a couple minutes here left. I think we've got time for maybe one more question, and that is, we've talked a lot about the potential in the Pacific Northwest in particular when it comes to scientific research. Are there any challenges that you see that are unique to this region that we should be working on or paying attention to, particularly when it comes to the sciences?
That's a great question, Kobe. And here's how I would put it. I kind of laid out the caliber of scientists and institution in our region, second to none. In some areas, top of the country, right? One of the things in order to keep the science and technology in the area is to translate that discoveries and the science into commercial products. So the Trust has a commercialization initiation program, as you know. And one of the reasons why that was developed or launched at the Trust, not only to advance our mission, but ultimately to also support the community and keep the talent in the region. One of the challenges is that many startup and these commercialization entities, they build to a certain point and many leave the area. How can we keep them in this area? That's a very complex issue, but we are playing a small role in building up the commercialization entrepreneurial space.
Excellent. Dr. Lee, this has been wonderful. So much more ground we could have covered. For those who submitted questions that we were not able to answer, we will be following up on our website with some additional content that gets into that information. But in the meantime, we want to thank everyone for joining us for today's conversation. If you're interested in learning more about some of the grants that we've made, our annual report is actually live today on our website, murdochtrust.org/annual report. There's some great scientific research content in there as well. Again, Dr. Lee, thank you so much for your.
Can I say a final word?
Absolutely.
Can I say a final word? Well, thank you so much for all of you taking time to join us this afternoon, and thank you, Kobe, for your great questions. I do want to say one thing, if I could. If you can't remember anything from this particular conversation we had, I hope you will remember Jack Murdoch's quote: "The greatest opportunity of all is in the field of figuring out how we humans can live a little bit more constructively." Thank you.
Great way to end. Thank you so much, Dr. Lee. Thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful Founders.
Thank you.